And they turn to me and I hear the Kill Bill sirens, the woo! And I was like, and I point and I'm like, you, just you.
And then I immediately go, you.
What's up, everybody? It's Karma, aka the Blerd Girl. Welcome back to another episode of the Blerd Girl Live. Now, this is, in fact, my last Tuesday episode of the season. Yep, this is our 8th episode. Can you believe it? We've got one more bonus episode coming at you this weekend, but this is my last Tuesday live for a minute. And I have a couple of amazing guests with me tonight who have been killing it in both the indie comics and mainstream comics scene. Between the two of them, they've written comics for Wonder Woman, Ironheart, Zena, Queen of Bad Dreams, James Bond 007, and soon both X-Men and Wolverine with Marvel. Welcome to the show, Vita Ayala and Danny Lore.
Muppet dance.
Muppet dance.
Hey, y'all.
Thank you so much for joining me. And it's so funny because we have it looks like Vita's upstairs and Danny's downstairs.
This is the wrong version of upstairs, downstairs.
We're just that treehouse of horror with the evil Bart.
Oh, but you're not the evil one, right? Because it's just us. Am I the
That's
tether? That's right. I think that's right.
No, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way back because I know the two of you have known each other forever. And I'm just warning all y'all, this is going to be a bit of a party because it's Vita and Danny. So let's just start. Yeah, no, you're not. Let's start.
This is us toned down. That's the terrifying thing.
Let's actually start with the first thing that I've been asking all of my guests. How have you been faring during this pandemic, lockdown, fire, tornadoes, locusts, and killer wasp season? What have you been watching? What have you been chilling and reading or streaming? What have you been doing?
I forgot about the killer wasp hornet things. What is that still a threat? They came, they were like, ooh, and then they left. They were like,
no,
sorry,
you know what it is? That's not what it is. This is one big game of broken Jumanji. That's what this is. So somebody keeps turning the game on and turning the game off, and stuff keeps showing and disappearing. So it's just a big game of Jumanji.
See, I'm like, y'all talking about the killer wasp. I'm like further along in time, and I'm on that what is it, that cosmic cloud with a heartbeat. Stuff that I was seeing today and yesterday.
Yeah, no, let's not talk about that. All of it. We're living in a vortex of it's like someone pitched this year and used every idea that they had at once. Like that's what this feels like.
Yeah, it's like they got the budget.
This thing and then this thing. I just can't.
It's that one dude who got the money to do everything for the first time, and so he did.
It's like what's the production company that did Battle Dogs?
Oh God, yeah.
Whatever house that is.
No, it's like. No, I was clowning Peter Jackson for once. No, it's like, when you have those poetry magnets for your fridge. It's like the person just got the horror set and just randomly threw just the very regular set and the horror set both at the refrigerator at the same time, and every
all the words
scene
just landed.
And they're just like, we're gonna write this like what lands on the refrigerator.
No, that's
and
right.
I like that as a writing exercise.
David Bowie used to put random stuff into a program that he wrote, like a computer program, and sometimes he'd be like, "Oh, I'm using it to inspire me to write a song," and then sometimes he was like, "Oh no, I'm just transcribing it. This is bananas." And I feel like the Matrix is truly glitched out. Anyway. What are we doing to survive? Is that what the question was?
Yeah,
already
watching. That's what I'm saying. I actually like your.
Well, I'm living the Matrix 4.
Okay.
This is actually just the Matrix 4.
Are you
blacker than ever, and I love it.
Oh, it's right. It's very black here.
It's super black here. Truly, it's the small things. What are we watching? I'm watching 3 things right now. Well, I just finished one of them. One of them I'm watching With the Rest of the World, which never happens. I'm watching Lovecraft Country, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in a second. I just finished The Untamed with my wife, who was live tweeting my reaction. I have feelings. I have so many feelings. Listen, I have feelings. Also, that one dude looks exactly like Villanelle from Killing Eve. I'm just saying. Anyway, the serial killer, funny enough. And then also, Teenie Howard and Jonathan Hickman got me on this show called Alone, which is a nightmare that I just binged like 9 episodes in a day. It's rugged as hell. I'm assuming I can't curse, so I'm trying very hard to like curse.
What are you talking about? No, this is Twitch, damn it. You can say whatever you want.
Oh,
we
shit.
grown. I mean,
that's what I'm saying.
I don't
Have
know.
you been on Twitch? You're fine.
It's scary, actually. Twitch is very scary. But I've actually been reading more than I've been watching stuff. So that's all that I've been watching, but I've been reading a bunch.
Well, okay. Well, let's hear what Danny's been watching. And then
I'm a big video game playing person.
Yeah.
Are we frozen?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you're still here.
Okay, cool. Time froze for me, which is, I'm just like, I don't know if that's technology or just my reality now.
You know what? That's where we're at in 2020.
So I comfort repeat watch a lot of stuff. So most of my pandemic has just been all the seasons of BuzzFeed Unsolved, except for the sports one, because that doesn't have Shane, so it doesn't count.
You got me onto that.
You finally did? We'll talk later. Because you finally started it. Vita and I are just the incarnation of the Goatman episode, except everyone thinks that Shane.
So I have to figure this out.
Oh, we'll link
so
you.
Like the whole so the whole dynamic of that show is one of them deeply believes in the conspiracy theories, and the other one is Shane. And the other one is so like when they just flagrantly disrespectful at every haunted place they go to. And so there's an episode where they go to the Goatman Bridge, Demon Bridge, and like Shane just goes off. He's like, okay, I'm gonna try something, and he just goes straight up, fuck you, Goatman. And Ryan's like, you can't just say that to a demon. And Shane is like, well, demons aren't real, so I can say whatever I want. And it's just,
I'm sweating just thinking about that right now.
It's us, but like the joke on it is that everyone would think that V is Shane and that I'm Ryan, but it's really not that. It's really the other way around.
I'm over here like him throwing salt over my shoulder. I'm like, no!
And I'm like, oh, are you scared? Are you scared? Does this upset you? Which is just what we were doing before we went live on here, was just me saying things, and V's like, stop scaring me. And I'm like, sorry. A little. But so like I keep that on loop in the background while doing other things. Like fortunately I got a Switch right, before the pandemic. So lots of games on that. Finally started Disgaea last night. So also gonna have I've never done it.
Sorry.
So I've been playing that.
I don't have a Switch. I don't have a Switch for this. I would never get anything done if I watched Chuck play games. Like I watched a lot of Ghost of Tsushima. Has anybody played that? Because it's a gorgeous game.
I'm playing that. It's so beautiful.
It's a beautiful, like the way he has to stop and like do a haiku. Like there's writing involved with this game, and then he's got to like sit in the hot tub and take a relaxing moment. I'm like, this game is making me rethink my life choices. My God.
If he finds time for self-care, then surely
that's what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah. In fact, like that's actually like a plot point where they're like, he's better at what he does because sometimes he stops and like fucking sits for a bit and reflects on the universe around him. And I'm like, that's deep. I'm gonna keep playing this video game.
You just walk through your life and just like, you gotta stop and smell that rose right now. Smell that
basically.
But like that for me, like yes, there's a little bit of an element of like video gaming like take over my life, but like it is my prime number one way to deal with anxiety. So it's been a really good kind of like comfort during pandemic because like I have attention and anxiety issues. So video games needing my eyes, my brain, and my hands all together keep me from like being like, oh God, the world is going to explode. And I do that by playing Civilization 6 and playing with the global pandemic DLC on and going to war with everyone. So I don't know if I'm doing this right.
That's
but
actually
it's
called.
helpful.
I'm sorry. I thought that was called Division. I'm confused.
I played Division 1. I was a hardcore Division 1 player. But not I didn't get into 2. I had to stop doing co-op.
Escape.
Yeah.
Get
I was
out.
gonna. Well, no. Ghost of Tsushima sounds like they're escaping, and just I just want to be clear. Both of your pronouns are they them, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm she her, but I wanted to clear that up. Yeah. But that's what Danny was just saying, that they're playing Ghost of Tsushima. So no, Danny's that way. so I that's the calming. That's exactly. That's the calming portion of, I think, their day. I don't know about
and building Gundams. Yeah.
Oh yeah, they.
But see,
and then
building Gundams is amazing. Like you're building real Gundams, like the actual sets where you like physically build them. Or is this...
Yeah, so I buy the sets. Yeah,
I can't because
my walls.
Because we're in their dungeon. That's why.
There it is.
I always use this one as the example. This is the cutie.
That is the cute one.
But yeah, I love it.
You have a, oh my goodness, a Hello Kitty one. I want a Hello Kitty Gundam. I'm doing this wrong.
They just announced a clear version, so I'm also getting that. But yeah, I got into Gundams just a little before the pandemic, which in a weird way, while it's like a money sink, it was a really great hobby to get into right before the pandemic, because it is very solitary. And also I can kind of stock up on them. So like I have more than I can reasonably do in like the next 2 weeks, right? But like that just means whenever I want to do it, I can. And I have ones that are like, take 2 hours, or like will take a week to build. And also me and my wife got into this really great ritual, which is like my favorite part of the pandemic, which is a weird thing to say, in which she reads to me while I build, usually at night. So like we've been reading through the Verkosigan saga, like the Bujold novels, because she's wanted me to read them for like years. So she was like, I'm just gonna read it to you. And I was like, I've been telling you to read them to me for years. You thought I was joking. I'm not joking. I enjoy being read to like a small child. And then I started like painting and customizing. So I always have something to do while she's reading to me, and it's dope.
I've written your post-apocalyptic story in my head now, of your like the only reason you leave your bunker is to go scavenge for more Gundams. Find me my ramen Gundam.
Just custom stuff.
Ramen Gundam.
It's coming out in a month or two. Actually, we're getting them. They made. So it's not actually like a robot Gundam, but it's like it is a model where you put together the cup of ramen. Like the noodles and everything, like you build it together, and it's coming out this fall, and I'm obsessed.
Okay, so I know. So if I ever do like a Gundam, if I have a Gundam giveaway, I see who I have to be calling. Danny. Look at Danny's face.
I care deeply about the different kinds of Gundams that you might give away, and let me tell you about them.
So Vita, I also want to hear I really want to hear also what you're reading, because I'm always interested in what writers read.
I've been reading as much as humanly possible. I just finished Lovecraft Country, I think last week. And so I was primed, because I was like, I'm not going to watch this show without reading the book. I'm not doing it. Not again.
Oh no.
now you got to reread Ballad of Black Chalk.
Yeah.
See, I didn't want to read it. I have it. Actually, let me see. Like HBO, where am I going right here? HBO was nice enough to give me some really cool stuff. I had the sweatshirt on yesterday that I put on Instagram, but
it's so beautiful.
They gave, what's my favorite? I don't know if you guys can see it. This is
we were talking about
viewfinder.
It's a Viewmaster viewfinder that they gave with scenes from the show, but the fact that it's like a viewfinder is amazing. Also, they gave the book. They gave actually Tomi Adeyemi's Children of Blood and Bone also, which is an amazing book. But every single thing that they sent is from a Black-owned small business. So even the books are from Amalgam in Philly. I was really excited. But I purposely have not read the book because I will constantly compare, and I kind of wanted to go in cold.
I totally get
and
that. I feel like for me, I was like, I'm interested in the process of that. I'm
Okay.
like
Yeah.
super into the process of transcribing or changing things from one media to another right
adapting,
now.
yeah.
Adapting, that's the word. I'm having a lot of word trouble lately. That's like a fun
It's
pandemic
fine.
thing.
I don't know what day it is, so we're even.
Bless. I
To
don't know
read
what
makes
day
us
it
speaking
is.
English.
But yeah, so I've been doing that on, like, I finally watched Watchmen a couple, I want to say like a month or two ago. I just put it all in my
I have
brain at
not
once.
started it yet. Yeah.
I needed to be in a place because I
Okay.
knew it would be intense, and like
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's
everyone
really,
that I
the first
respected.
episode is most of it, but yeah, it's very good, and it's a very
The
I tell people
episode.
this.
Oh, go ahead.
The,
No,
the
no,
very
please.
first one, the very first episode of Watchmen is a lot if you're not prepared. But also, I tell everybody that Watchmen is a perfect example of what I consider fan fiction done properly. Meaning, you take the world
Yeah.
that these stock characters have been created in, and then you create an extension of that world, staying true to the original world and putting it someplace else. It's like, it's
I
perfect.
agree.
So yeah, Danny, I
And
can't wait for you to see it either.
Yeah, no,
I
I
will
was
say this
similar
for
to
Danny
Vita,
too.
that I was like, yeah.
There's another episode in there that I think you're gonna have to prepare for, the one where with the two perspectives.
Yes,
You know what I'm
that
talking
one's
about?
tough. Yeah, it's episode 6.
That's a
Danny,
lot.
just
Yes,
episode 6, just have a
it's a
teddy
lot.
bear and
Yeah,
a
and
Gundam
in a
next to
very weird
you.
way, like, I've heard of that episode, and it's one of those things where it was like, both I know I'm gonna have to prepare and it's gonna be a lot, but hearing about that episode, like, no one spoiled me, but like hearing about the
It's
structure of that
phenomenal.
episode was this is very funny, leading to stuff that Vita and I were actually talking about earlier today. Was the turning point in me going from I don't know if I'm gonna watch it to like I will watch it, I just have to be ready for it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
As much as
something
I
I tell
love
people to
TV,
do.
it's stressful for me.
Yeah, no, but I get it. And actually,
Yeah.
I just had this conversation earlier, well, online with Steens. She was worried about watching
Lovecraft
Lovecraft,
Country.
and I
Yeah, I
said,
saw that too.
I told her, go read an episode recap. Just spoil it for yourself. You still should
Mhm.
watch it, but it will make it less traumatizing because you know it's coming. Whatever's
I think
happening, you
too,
know what I mean?
part of the reason that I went and read the book first is that because it's like a period piece, I was like, I want to make sure that I can handle it. And for me, reading about something is visceral, but I have more control over it than I would have with something that I'm watching or even
Yeah.
playing a video game, which sounds wrong, right? But like, to me, reading is the experience in which I have the most control. But also, it's so interesting the choices that people make when they adapt something. And
Yeah.
speaking about Watchmen too, like, to me, I was talking about this earlier, but to me, Watchmen is like one of the best adaptations of anything from one medium to another that I've seen.
I
Like,
agree.
it's incredible. And I did not want to like it. I went into it going, I love Regina King, and so I'm gonna watch this, but I'm not gonna like it. They're not gonna get it right. And I was like, oh, I'm wrong. I'm wrong here.
No,
I was wrong.
and you know what's funny? I was lucky enough to get, for Watchmen, I was lucky enough to get the first. First of all, there was a lot of people of color that were on that team for
Yes.
the publicity team, and I was lucky enough to get the first 6 episodes, and I'm glad I did because I kind of had the same reaction. And I said, after watching them, and then look, I had seen the first 6 episodes before anybody had seen the premiere, so I was like, oh my god, I don't know. I can't wait any longer. People need to watch this show. So it's hard when you do it that way, but for press, they want to get stuff out. But I had to explain to people, no, watch it, give it a shot. The same thing happened with this. I got to get a screener, not of 6 episodes, but of one of the premiere. And because I remember when they announced it, I'm like, I wasn't familiar with the book. And I was like, Lovecraft was not, and then I was like, oh wait, Misha Green.
Well, and that's the thing.
And Misha
too.
Green's
So,
the
like,
director and showrunner.
Right. And that was the thing that I noticed too, because Danny and I will talk about this as well, but like, there are books out there that do the work of being like, we're going to just we're gonna take this now. You don't get to have
Yes.
this more. Like
Yes.
Ballad of Black Tom
That's
is
actually
my number one example. But I also noticed too that the novel was written by a white dude, and I was like, oh, now I'm
That was
really
my problem.
interested to see.
Yeah.
Right. And I was like, but when I saw, Green and then Peel, like I was like, okay, all right. And then also the cast, I was like, this is putting money in Black people's pockets. So I have to
Exactly.
support
that's
it.
actually
But then I was pleasantly surprised for the most part. And I'm spoiled in that I read the book first. So there are certain things where I'm like, I see why you did that, but how is that going to play out later? So like you may be right to wait until after.
Yeah.
One of the things that made me particularly hyped about the show is for the past couple of years, especially not so much in comics, although it's starting to come over to comics, but in prose in particular, there's been a conversation about cosmic horror and racism that is really a strong part of the communities that I'm part of as a prose writer. We were talking about Ballad of Black Tom, where when that one came out and I read it, I'm not a journaling person. I don't do that. It just doesn't come naturally to me. I spent an entire night just writing about the things that I had never seen that were done in that book. Both from, the doing cosmic horror and what is Ballad of Black Tom, for people who don't know it. It's a retelling and prequel, both, of Murder at Red Hook, but partially through the perspective of a Black man and a racist cop. Um, and it's very much, it doesn't try to replicate Lovecraft prose at all. It's a lot cleaner. And then on top of that, it was just boldly about racism and boldly about what you do, in the same way that like a lot of the themes in Lovecraft country are. What do you do when your two options are like a super oppressive structural racism and elder gods? And what happens if the elder gods look better, frankly.
Honestly. Well,
And then
and two,
then
it
there's
does the thing,
yeah.
right? Where like in Lovecraft, I've read a lot of Lovecraft. That's just the thing. Lovecraft's unspeakable horror and scary thing is brown people and poor people, right?
Yep.
And then this flips it where it's like, no, the unspeakable horrible thing is the white supremacy, because no one speaks of it, but it oppresses us all.
And it has power. Like,
yeah, and
the
more you don't speak about it, the more power it has. And so I was really interested about that, because Ballad of Black Tom was one of my favorite reads in the last 10 years.
And also those elder gods are attracted to anger. It's like they walked, because there's, and I'm not going to spoil it, but they pass right over somebody who is, like one in the first episode, one of the monsters just passes them by, and I sat with that. I'm like, why? And it's Chuck, my boyfriend, is a huge Lovecraft fan, and he was like, there's not enough anger. That wouldn't be tasty. They all feed off of anger and hatred.
This is a spoiler that isn't a spoiler, but because they show it kind of in the trailer. But there's things with light that they do.
Yep.
And you're like, yes, because it can't, that hatred and anger can't survive in the light. And that I just found that really fascinating. Danny, I won't talk about it anymore because I know you haven't seen it all. You're at a very.
I mean, that's fine. You talk very thematically about the stuff that shows up in not just Lovecraft stuff, but in the cosmic horror that like Victor Laval and like Cassandra Caw have been doing, like Absolutely. For a while. And even Jemison's City We Became deals with cosmic horror in a very interesting modern way. And it is something that for me is really important, because a few years ago in one of the big awards for like sci-fi and fantasy, it's literally the trophy was Lovecraft's head for a very long time. And that kind of came, haha, pun, to a head a few years ago, where people were like, how welcome can people of color, can marginalized people be in a world where the high prize you know, is him staring at you. Like, imagine being a Black person to win that award, and do you have that on your shelf? Is that something you can be proud of if you're writing and Lovecraft's head is looming in you, like in your life? But and then it also does that in a metaphorical sense as well, too, right?
But like, let's be real. The two of us run on spite. So I'd be like, yeah, I got your
like,
head. Now what?
well,
What?
But here's the thing.
I mean, the
we're
answer
not gonna
is
do
I
it-
would have started painting him and just, you
Yeah.
know, he's
Like
a
a
Gundam
Gundam.
now.
He'd be a Gundam. He'd be a Gundam. Right, exactly. I mean, one day we'll have a lovely little conversation about Will Eisner. That's not for tonight.
That's not for tonight. Ugh. I was having
that
that
Eisner
conversation
Award
with
that
a friend
everybody
of mine,
covets
too.
so much. If anybody really took a look. But the other thing I just want to mention before we get off of this really quick is Tanana Reevdu, who was a previous guest. Tanana Reevdu is one of she is one of the foremost writers of cosmic horror. If you haven't, you've got to go check out the Between, which came out, I want to say that's 95, 90 something. It's basically a wife starts getting death threats and a husband begins to experience an alternative reality, and they might both be coming from the same thing, which is possibly an elder god or possibly schizophrenia. And it's a Black man.
It's a phenomenal book.
Yeah, so that's something else that you should also like add to your repertoire. But I want to go back because I'm curious. Yes, let's go back. Now, before the two of you met each other, because I know you're besties, growing up, were you watching a lot of anime and reading a lot of manga and reading a lot of comic books, or did that not happen till later?
So when I was younger, when I was like in high school, early high school, like 8th, 9th, 10th grade, the whole thing really, I would just skip school and just go to Chinatown and use my lunch money to buy anime tapes instead. I had a guy. He got me at Octopus Kingdom.
You had a guy.
I had a guy.
Octopus Kingdom.
Octopus Kingdom, that's right. It was $5 for one tape, 3 for 10, right? And then I would go there 2-3 times a week. And so he started to know my tastes. And he was like, all right, for the free one, I'll give you something that you haven't heard of before. So I got to see like Utena before I came over here. I got to see Cowboy Bebop before I came over here, Outlaw Star, all that kind of stuff. And also things I shouldn't have seen, a lot of hentai, let's be real here. I was a teenager. And then manga, absolutely. Flame of Recca was another one. And Flame of Recca is actually one of my favorite animes. Oh
my gosh.
That was my very first tattoo, the Flame of Recca tattoo. I used
proud of you for not getting a Black Bible one.
Oh my God.
What was that, Danny?
Proud of you for not getting a Black Bible one. If we're talking about all the things, I know your ass watched, but weren't supposed to.
Oh, it would have been a little blue girl tattoo for sure. Nightmares. No, but I love, I've been on that for a long time. I fell out of it kind of probably about 6-7 years ago. I see things now and then, like people will suggest things and I'll watch it. Like I watched Madoka Magica and like all that kind of stuff as it was coming out, but that was kind of past my time. Yeah, I love me some anime manga. Every time, Karma, that you start talking about that stuff on the show, I'm like, yes, please. What should I be watching? What should I be looking at? So,
but I want to hear what Danny has to say, and I'll give you a few of my picks. So, Danny, what were you coming up? What were some things that you were like, oh, this is amazing? Like you said, you like listening and watching. Well, also, Danny, you said you like watching and rewatching things repeatedly. What was your comfort anime? What was your comfort manga?
For anime, it's Gundam Wing. That's how me and my wife, not that we met, but we had known each other for a little time, fell out of contact, somewhere around middle school. And long before either of us knew we were gay, I just called her up because I wanted a friend, and she apparently was like, I don't know what to talk about, so I talked about the thing that I was watching, which was Gundam Wing, and so that was kind of our bridge. I was like, okay, I guess I'll watch this thing so that we have something to talk about, and that is still, like I said, it's funny because I only got into Gundam building recently. But part of that was kind of this whole it's been so important to me for so long, you know. And then I think at the shop we got like a Death Scythe or like a Wing Zero, and I was like, I'll build this, and then like it kept happening. So Gundam Wing is like a big rewatch one for me. Nowadays it's Megalobox, which is only a few years old, like 2 or 3 years old, but I've watched it countless times now. But like I grew up in a family where my mom read a lot of Stephen King and my dad watched all the Treks. So we weren't like, oh, we have stuff in the house. It was weird because technically I had a really geeky household, but they weren't like, I'm like a merchant toy person. Neither of them ever was, right? So it was that sort of entertainment. It didn't occur to me until much later in my life that it was nerdy.
Right.
Because
no, Danny,
because
I had the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't like, because when people talked about nerdiness, you know, as a kid, I'm like, well, some of that stuff no one judges because you're a kid. So having some of those like signs are just like, you're a kid, you have toys, you have action figures. And then like there was a very different like media perception of nerdiness was very different from what I understood it to be, you know. So I didn't realize really until much later in my life that like the fact that my dad can like, he may not know the episode names because he like didn't look them up, but the fact that he could like describe, you know, episode to episode, like virtually every Trek and Angel plot that ever happened, you know. And he got into Angel because I was a giant Buffy fan. Like that was my first big one that like I was like full blown fandom. I mean, before that I was watching Zena and like Highlander and Highlander the Raven, all, and like Crow Stairway to Heaven.
Were you watching Beastmaster? Come on.
Yes.
Oh my God, Beastmaster.
Saturday and Sunday mornings. Hello.
That's right.
Saturday and Sunday mornings had that Beastmaster, Crow Stairway to Heaven, and then the Highlander, the Raven stuff. And then, you know, Saturday nights, and absolutely. And then Saturday nights, you know, we had Jack of All Trades and Cleo 2525. It was very
back action.
Yes.
If you were to like Twin Peaks was instantiated in a show, like in a block of an hour of television, it's Jack of All Trades and Cleo 2025.
But the interesting thing that thing that Danny said that was very interesting. I grew up. It's funny. I grew up like you, not quite knowing that I was a geek, because I grew up in an all white neighborhood in like the suburbs. So we would escape like right outside of New York. So we would escape to come into the city. But so it was geeky in the household. We were watching Star Trek. We were watching all the things. Like I would battle my father because he loved Babylon 5, and I'm like, that's a fake Star Trek. That's not the real thing. Like it was so funny. So that's what I'm saying. When these are the discussions. No, there are, but that was the discussions that we would have. Yeah. And my father, may rest in peace, that was one of his favorite shows, and we had. But we grew. I tell people now this is not strange, but 10 years ago when I would tell people that we have a family account to Crunchyroll, they'd be like, "What's a Crunchyroll? Like a Japanese restaurant?" Like my mother was watching like Korean soap operas and Taiwanese soap operas, and we were watching Indian Bollywood movies, and we were watching anime. Like none of this was strange to me. And then the strange part of my life was being a Black girl.
Yeah,
bumped to being a geek. I didn't know I was a geek till I got to college.
So yeah,
and I didn't know I was a geek till I got to college. And then people were like, all the Black kids were like, what are you saying? Like,
but
what?
But I think, I also like a different like. Everybody was that. Like it was like geekiness, like Black people, that's just, we were like, yeah, we know kung fu stuff and all that kind of like
it was anime and
manga and like
and comics
and Japanese, Chinese,
and comics like in and of itself weren't like, it was wild to me like growing up. And like my dad, like, so my mom had this thing where I wasn't allowed to read comics for a chunk of my life, not because like they were nerdy things, but because I read them too fast. So I was only, maybe if I went to the library, I was allowed to go get them, but she wasn't spending money on them.
That's fair.
So like till about 12, I was reading comics. And then in college when I was spending my money on them. But like my dad grew up, like he would tell me stories of him and his friends, like where he was like, see me with a comic and then be like, I, you know, when we picked ones, I was always Iron Man. Like, but the thing, like, so for me, it was really weird when I started being exposed to, and this isn't like judging, like to white nerddom in a certain way, because
It's different.
things that were just right, because there's things that were just like normal ass like reading of comics, you know,
Yeah.
were like for all my uncles. And like my dad was like to himself, but like I had a couple of uncles that were like the cool dudes in the neighborhood, right? And like I, you know, until he passed, I was buying him Silver Surfer comics because that was his boy, you know, like, and he was
It's
always that cool dude. And so it was weird to me that like my perception of what nerdiness was. And you know, there's also a certain bit of I grew up in the projects, you know, Vita grew up in Alphabet City, and like the understanding of like the smart kid is a little bit different culturally.
right.
Like
Yeah.
like when you're
No,
part of a marginalized group, you know, like, so for
No one tried to
me,
give
the
me a
things that
swirly for reading a comic book. Like that was
yeah,
not a thing.
no, but I
yeah,
will
for
say
me,
though, when you're acculturated that way, and I guess for me, I was just an outsider all the way around. Like, I mean,
yeah.
even my shirt, like I was the nerdy black girl that got this in high school. So, like, this
That's a
was
I mean,
solid
once
that
I
was
take.
went
my
to
life.
high school yeah, once I went to high school, it was a different thing because I was a scholarship girl in like a like kid in like an all girls school, and
Mhm.
so it was suddenly this which like messed with my brain for like years afterwards because it was all this stuff that I didn't consider weird about myself that was suddenly considered weird. But
Right.
like the nerdiness was always, if you were a nerdy kid in the projects near me, it was, oh, somebody tries to mess with you or tries to keep you hanging out at night. One of their friends go, nah, leave them alone
Right.
because
They're a
And
they got
smart
shit.
one.
two,
You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
they're a
like
smart
they're
one.
gonna make it. Like there's also
you know,
too
like it's
something you said about comics in particular, but also manga because that's a lot of content for it seems like a lot when you're younger, but not nearly as much as other kinds of entertainment where like
yeah,
that's so much more accessible to people from where I grew up. Like buying a single issue of comics back then was like $1.50, $2, and that you could pass that around. And so like part of being
also
a
we had that
person,
good ass Toonami, not like the
we had that
newer crappy Toonami,
good ass tsunami.
but like
That's
But
true.
like
You
we
we
still
had
get
had
the good
like
ass tsunami.
the Ronin. No, but we had like that Ronin Warriors. We had the
so
Gundam
good.
Wing played a certain way
Sailor
at afternoon,
Moon.
and then if you stayed up till midnight, they got to actually curse. Like, you know,
Yeah, Midnight Run.
like
But
we
wait,
had
wait,
that
wait, wait,
original
wait,
Toonami.
wait. But even like leaving cable out of it, right? Because not everyone could afford cable or was smart enough to steal cable. They
Yep.
played anime on network television early in the morning or in
In the
the
morning,
afternoon.
yes.
And
Yes.
like so that was accessible to us in a way, and also too, like I had an understanding of it as a kid, but like I was like, they're not white. Sometimes they're blonde, but they're Japanese, and I know that. So like I was like, oh,
Even though,
they're brown
yeah,
people.
because of the language also, like you knew they were other, and you could, for me, I felt I can relate because they are other. They're not white. They speak another language. They are, because I saw other people who, to you and me, we'd say, okay, at least European, get treated the same way that I did because they didn't speak English or something like that. Even Latin, white, Spanish speaking people were getting treated the same. So it's like, for me in my head, oh, if you don't speak English, you're other like me. So I think that was the other thing. And also, what's interesting about the seeing it and getting the video beforehand, by the time stuff was on, for me anyway, I'm a little bit older, when stuff was on Toonami and on Adult Swim, and people are like, oh, I'm seeing this the first time, and I'd be like,
You're like, that's years late.
that's what I'm saying, like, oh,
And
saw that years ago.
meanwhile, the three of us are screaming, "They're not cousins! Stop saying
They're
they're
not cousins. That
cousins!"
was the biggest thing. But also, oh, even worse. I saw all of Ava on those subs, like on those underground
Oh,
subs. And so seeing that in when they brought it to television here, I was like, what have you done? This is
Yo, let me
no,
tell you,
this is
if you
wrong.
want to talk cosmic horror, let me tell you my experience watching Ava, because Natalie and I, my wife, got into it. Like, I spent a lot of weekends at her house before anyone knew we were gay. We married now, but like, so we would go to Blockbuster. Like we did the Blockbuster trek, and so we spent several weeks watching Ava, right? Like the official like ones that came out, and then we got to episode 24, aka the episode before the end that ends everything, duplicate disc of the ones before. Oh crap, that sucks. We went back the next weekend. Scratch disc, broken disc. So I went years without seeing, and then one of them just was scratched in a way that the only episode that wouldn't play was that freaking episode.
No.
So I went for
no.
years not understanding the jump between episodes 23 and 25 and how like the whole thing like shifts.
The elder gods
in
were
one
truly working against you there.
And so that
That's a
is
lot.
what we call nerd ass cosmic horror.
Cosmic horror.
But that's the thing about too, like being nerdiness, like or being nerdy and you know, either not having enough money or being other, being brown, being queer, being, you know, a woman. It's bananas that women are other, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, I'm finding myself in these places where I'm not allowed to find myself in my life. I'm finding myself sometimes in positions of power or being a hero or any of that cool stuff. Like one of the reasons that I love Flame of Recca so much was that the main character was like, he was kind of a son of a bitch, but like what he really wanted to do was just, he was like, ninjas are cool and helping people is cool. I'm going to get in trouble at school because I'm fighting people that are mean. And I was like, that appeals to me deeply as a person. And then like, you know, flash forward and I'm like, oh, I get it now. Like I wasn't allowed to do those things. Like, I mean, I did, but in real life you get stabbed. So like, I don't do those things anymore.
Yes.
But like,
and we're happy that you don't.
Well, I love let them fool you.
I love how they just said like, oh, and I don't do those things anymore. So somebody somewhere was stabbed.
It was me. I was stabbed.
Oh no!
But like, you know, I'm a mess. That's Danny's second favorite story. But you know, to me, like that power, fantasy, and wish fulfillment is so interesting. And I talk to different kinds of people about why they like certain kinds of media, why they like certain nerdy things or whatever. It's all being nerdy is mainstream now in the best kind of way. We have access to it, and like there's a lot less stigma, which is great. I don't want people to know what it felt like when people were mean to you about it. But like I ask people why they connect with certain stories, and it's really interesting that a lot of people from marginalized groups are like, I saw myself or someone that looked like me or whatever doing things that I've always wished I could do, but I was not allowed to do or I was unable to do. And that's the power of nerdy shit right there to me. Like the ability to self-actualize. I tell this story, you know, all the time, but you know, my first comic book one of my first comic books, there was two. One was Wonder Woman and one was X-Men. And I remember this because it's important that they were right next to each other, and the X-Men comic had Storm and Bishop on the cover. And then there was Wonder Woman, who I misidentified as Puerto Rican. And so for a very long time,
I don't think you necessarily did. I don't think you necessarily did misidentify her
all the time. Okay, so here's my reasoning. Two things. One, she looks like one of my cousins, like just straight up. But she's wearing like coochie cutters with like stars on them and like bangles and like all that kind of stuff. I was like, that's a Puerto Rican. She comes from an island of very powerful women. Like that's Puerto Rican. And also on TV, she was played by Linda Carter, right? And I was like, well, they don't let Puerto Ricans play themselves, but Linda Carter is half Mexican. So like, they were like, oh, that's close enough. Like that was my small, tiny mind being like, she's a Puerto Rican. But like,
you did a lot of work.
I did a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot.
I've always been me. I've never not been me. But like, you know, I look at these two things and I was like, oh, Storm is one of the most powerful people in this universe and one of the most good with a capital G and regal people. I can't, where I am in my life, even as a child, I was like, I don't see that for myself, but I get to see it now. And then Wonder Woman is the pinnacle to me of goodness, like across all universes. Like she's not good in the way that like she doesn't make mistakes, and she's not good in the way that like, oh, well, I'm going to judge people that do things differently. No, she's good in the way where she's like, sometimes you have to fight. Sometimes that's what it means to be good. And sometimes you have to forgive, even if it's hard. And that's what it means to be good. And so like to see that and to misidentify her as a Puerto Rican, I was like, I've never seen that before. We're gangsters on television. You know what I mean? Like we're, you know, or all manner of things that, you know, that we're told are bad. Not necessarily that are bad, but that we're told are bad. And so like that to me is the power of geekiness. Anyway, sorry, that's my soapbox.
No, it's really always like hearing you talk about that one, because Little U's a genius. That is just galaxy level. Yes, got him. But also like um in almost the absolute opposite direction. I genuinely think that that's why, in a weird way, John Constantine and Hellblazer remains my favorite, because for me, the thing that I don't get to do in the real world is twofold. One, it's be angry, and two, actually kind of three, because it branches, fuck up real bad and then just fix it through force of will. As a marginalized person, those three things terrify me, because we're always told you get one chance. I was a kid that went through a scholarship academic program with that constant pressure of, if you step wrong, if you say something wrong to the wrong person, it's all over. If you get kicked out of the school, you failed everything, right? And then there's this swaggering, just asshole, in Hellblazer, who just waltzes in, screws things up, even if he doesn't even necessarily always need to be aiming towards good. Like, sometimes he's trying to be good, sometimes he's just him and he stumbles on
Trying
these
to
things.
survive.
And and he, in Dangerous Habits, where he literally tricks his way out of cancer and turns, screwing himself over colossally, but there's always that kind of element of, well, John will figure it out eventually, and he flips the demons the finger, right? And I can't imagine, and that's a different level of power to me, right? It's a
Yeah,
different level
that's
of existence, where he can exist in a world where he's like, yep, almost destroyed the world, I'll figure it out, even if he feels terrible about it afterwards, even if he has to deal with that weight. I The power to be an asshole is like the most bizarre superpower I've ever like experienced on the page. And like that for me, in the ways that you like Wonder Woman and Storm like were wish fulfillment for you, like those books for me, when I see those characters that are allowed to do things like that, to just be like, I'm just gonna figure it out as I go, and if you don't like me, well, too bad. Like, I love that.
I feel like almost all of our choices people would assume was like, or would be reversed.
Would be
Like, I feel
swapped.
like,
True
I
fact.
think
yeah.
I can see
True
that.
fact.
Yeah.
Their favorite turtle is Donatello, and mine is Raphael.
I
Just
I
full on
always wish I
swap
could be
the whole thing.
Donatello, but it's not me. I'm
Yeah,
Raphael.
no,
There's no
exactly,
way I'm
exactly.
Donatello.
Also, wait, I'm sorry.
Right?
I just have to say that Danny's whole lair has gone full, like the cat showed up, the cat's black,
Just
hanging out back there. It's just
that is
everything. Like,
that is Lucinda lore.
of
In
course it
order
is.
of
Of
power
course
in
it
the
is.
house, it is
Lucy
Lucy.
Lore.
We actually didn't give Lucy her
There she
name. That
is.
was her name in the shelter. But in order of power, it is Lucy, my wife, and then me. And that's pretty much
She's on your other side.
true. And I'm okay with that.
So I want to go really quick too, because we can talk about this all night, but I actually want to talk about how the two of you met, worked together, and the things that you're working on. Now, I know that you work together at Forbidden Planet. For those of you who are joining us that are not from New York, Forbidden Planet is one of the biggest comic book stores in Manhattan. Is that where you met, or did you happen to just work there at the same time?
Oh boy. Well, Danny was hired.
There's actually a story here.
Of course, there's a story to everything the two of you tell me.
That's true. I left to go to college. So I had been working there, and I would come back during summer breaks and other breaks and stuff. But I left to go to school, and my sister who was working there, Jean Marie, missed me. And so Danny walks in, in much the same way that I got hired, kind of. I got hired at Forbidden Planet because I was an angry 19-year-old who wanted to quit school. I was still in school, like in high school, and I angrily was storming down Broadway smoking, and I was like, I'm gonna get a job at Forbidden Planet, and then they gave me the job. So anyway, Danny
I was just going. Yeah, I was going door to door. I had a list of every comic shop. I don't even know why I decided that I was only going to do comic shops, but I had decided that I was only going to do comic shops. Uh, and like I weirdly remember exactly what I was wearing because I'm that sort of person. It was a pink and blue striped shirt. It was that T-shirt I had for years.
Mhm.
And I went in with my bag, a resume, and Starship Troopers in my bag because I was rereading it. And so
That's your
like
totem.
oh yeah. So I like walked in and Jean Marie, like, so I went in and was handing my resume, and if anyone has ever tried to get a job at Forbidden Planet, you know what happens is at this point, the Dark Shadow Maw opens up and consumes your resume,
It's gone.
and maybe if someone leaves, they like flip through it, but it's like that pile is always giant, right? What
Oh
doesn't
my
happen
God.
is what happened next, which is Jean Marie gave me what I now know to be like iconic registered trademark Jean Marie up and down, and
Dude.
went 1
Yep.
second, disappeared, somehow convinced Jeff to interview me immediately that day, and
To
I
be
didn't know this
fair,
was weird.
backing up a little, we've never looked the same, but we looked a little more similar at the time. We both had
Both
the
had the
same
long curly
hairstyle,
hair.
same glasses, very similar style, like in terms of how we dressed. Again, we have never looked
Wait,
like the
please
same
don't tell me.
person.
Please don't tell me they mixed y'all up because they do that with us.
Oh,
That comes
well,
later.
yes, but
That comes later.
that's later. No. So the moral of this
So
story that Danny will
is I
tell
just
is
showed
that Jean
up
Marie
and yeah, it's literally Jean Marie is just like, no, we just needed somebody. And I'm like, listen, I worked there for 10 years. I know exactly how hiring works in this place. You looked at me, missed Vita, and decided that there was going to be a new Vita in town. Fast forward to
Aw.
months of like 2-3 months of both of us just hearing about the other, me getting mistaken for like from a distance of
by
like people
customers.
coming in and just being like no, no. Vita
And me
getting
getting
messages.
calls, getting emails, getting AIMs because that's when AOL was still a thing. Yo, there's a new you. Yo, I thought you were upstate. Yo, what's going on? I was like, there's only one me, first of all.
I was gonna say, how do they say there's a new you?
I was like, that's not a thing. So I come home for it wasn't Christmas break?
It was
Yeah,
Christmas
break.
because it
It
was
was because
2 weeks later.
in my home. So I come home and I'm just hearing like, oh, Vita 2.0. And I was like, either I'm gonna walk into the store right now and we're gonna throw down, or we're gonna be best friends. So I walk in and I like, Danny's in the middle of the store. They had a register.
No
that
one
was, like,
introduces us.
No one.
They didn't
No
need
one.
to.
I see them and they turn to me and I hear the Kill Bill sirens, the woo! And I was like, and I point and I'm like, you. Just you.
And then I immediately go, you. And
without it was perfect.
We at this
I was
point
like, oh, you're
have
cool.
no clue. We literally have no clue who said the next thing at this point because we have merged so much. One of us says it. I feel like it has to be Vita because it was like a Star Trek reference at the time, but that's not necessarily true.
That's not
That one
necessarily
of us
true,
goes, so which one of us is the evil one? Which one of us has the mustache? And that's the next thing we say. And then fast forward 2 weeks later, I've slept over on Christmas. I am sleeping on their couch.
They just
and I wake
for
up
2 weeks. I was like, you got to come over and hang out.
and we did. True fact, that hangout was where the first joke that led to Quarter Killer happened.
Really?
Yes.
10 years.
Immediately. So I wake up Christmas morning to Vita's mom leaning down and squinting in confusion, and me just sleepily going, your kid is over there, and pointing to the other one.
There were 2 couches. And I was like, no, here.
It was
You
so
want me
great.
to
I
do
still
this.
remember when my dad finally met you, and he just did this like real dad soft smile and a because like in all the stories we had told just came together, seeing us both in the same room.
The answer is yes, by
you
the
know,
way. People would mistake us for each other all the time, so much that we started calling ourselves siblings because it was just easier, because we would have people arguing with us they would be like, no, but you have to be related, right? And we'd be like, no. We had one person literally go, but what if you have the same father? And we were like, no, that's not, that's racist. Like, stop.
That was weird because that was a dude hitting on us. So that was really
Oh,
weird.
It was so weird. I did not like it. I had the
there's a lot there.
Oh, we
just
did have the Great Revenge. The great player
Revenge.
1, player 2 of Revenge, which was we chose one day that we
were
both on
no
shift.
longer allowed to work on the same floor after this. This is the important part of the story. They were like,
this is true. They actually split us up. We matched outfits, and we both wore vests and 2 different colors, and Vita brought matching hats in different colors.
Right, different colors.
And see, that's just mean.
And we had name tags.
And
oh, no, that's not the mean part. That's not the mean part. We timed it that every couple of hours we switched one piece of clothing.
Yep. Oh, come on. That's mean. That's mean. You know white folks can't tell the difference on a good day. What are you doing?
Oh, no,
it wasn't just Marie. She exiled me to the front and Danny upstairs.
Marie was like, you can never do this again. And we were like, that's fair. We knew we were only going to get one go.
Oh,
so
no.
I think we did like every 2 hours. We swapped every single
day. Then when you were like doing those sleepovers and like thinking up some of those beginning things for Quarter Killer, did you both think, working in a comic book shop, you know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to get out of here and I'm going to write my own comics and I'm going to Vita's like,
we were
absolutely
both right.
not.
We were both writing, but I didn't even do comics yet.
Right.
I had it was actually several years in before I ever wrote my first script. We talked about writing a lot. Like we shared each other's writing, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't till much later till some of our other coworkers pulled us in.
Yeah,
some of their other coworkers, by the way, for the people in the chat who don't know, are like Matthew Rosenberg. So that is a hell of.
He actually got real mad. He got real mad at us for an article title where he thought that we were seriously telling people that we were siblings, because he's like, do you realize how much time I spend explaining to people how you guys are not actually related, and now you guys are just confusing people again? And we had to be like, no, we're just
He's like, I'm trying to stop people from being racist. It was there's a lot. Matt Rosenberg is the reason that I thought I could do it. With Danny, one of the probably the first thing when we first started hanging out that I discovered was that we could vibe on a story level, and that it didn't feel like work. It didn't feel like, sometimes you have a friend where you argue about story. It didn't feel like that. What it felt like was a meeting of the minds, but not so grand and grandiose. It was much more like I found someone that I can just talk to about things that I care about and create something with, and there's no pressure. And so for years we would talk about stories and talk about that. Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, and that's really important too.
Which so we've done a bunch of projects together at this point, and as we went on, it's really funny. The more the line blurs between who wrote what issue at this point. We pick one person to take the lead ostensibly, but at this point it's literally we'll go to a point where we're like, cool, I left these scenes blank because I don't know what to do here, and the other one will be like, well, that's actually my favorite part of writing, and then we will literally just get on the phone and go through we will literally write on the phone together, just the scenes coming together sometimes, and we were kind of doing that from the jump. I think all but one of those inside jokes have made it into something. We haven't figured out the thing for the first joke yet.
Well, we'll figure that out.
What was the first job that the two of that you each got separately? What was your first comic book credit?
Mine was DC New Talent Showcase, I believe, in 2016, 2017, something like that.
I love how you're saying that was like it was 100 years ago. You're like, 2016.
Time is a flat circle. I don't know what is happening anymore.
Danny, what was your first?
My first credit, I think, is well, technically it's an editorial credit because it's editing The Wilds.
Oh, really?
So that would have
Okay.
been, yeah. And then I did Queen of Bad Dreams after that.
Got you. Which is still going.
God, it's so good.
But I started doing I got my first I think I had one short story published before that point, maybe two.
It was one of
Because I had Last Exorcist. Yeah, because I had Last Exorcist. So I was doing stuff in like the prose world, and I had just kind of, I'd also started working with the Violet team on that magazine, and all of that. But like Queen of Bad Dreams was my first one, and then
Danny,
Time Blurs
I
after
don't know
that.
about Danny, is that like Danny's prose is so good that I quit writing prose. Like I joke
And
about
I'm
that,
still
but also
angry
it's kind
about
of Danny.
And
I
every
He
started
time
said, I'm
Danny
so
quits,
angry about that.
Danny's so good. I read one of their like a manuscript for something that isn't out yet, that is being revised, and I was like, oh, I don't need to write prose then. I guess I'll move on. Moving on to a new
that's
medium.
the thing. But the
There's
thing
no-
is,
Don't feel bad. They're so good that I was like,
but the thing is, I will also say Vita is significantly better at scripting than I am. Like,
well, thank you. I don't think that's true. but I'll
just
take
like, I'll fight you. I say that a lot,
Oh,
and it's true.
that's a compliment. If you don't take it, they will punch you.
Yeah. But no, I think that Vita has a much better sense than me of pacing in particular. Just across the board, not just in comics, but I think in storytelling. And is very, very good at figuring out how to make everything in between point A and B work in a certain way. And also, I just think the way that they script a story and communicate to
why
an
are we
artist and a
complimenting
team
you now? Let's
is
move back
like
to what
great.
Caramel wanted to talk
Mostly
about.
Oh
I
my God.
compliment
Okay.
mostly I compliment Vita because it makes them incredibly uncomfortable, and
I see
I
that.
have to do that at least 4 times a day.
Get out of
Aw.
here.
Well, now
Make them
let's talk
uncomfortable, not
about.
compliment them.
So,
That's true.
what is the one thing that really surprised you going from being a comic book fan to writing in the business? Because the thing that the two of you were not talking about was, we talked about the first gig you both got, but Vita, you've worked on not just indie stuff, you've also done Wonder Woman and Zena, one of the shows that you were watching growing up. The two of you have worked on James Bond. The two of you worked on Riri. Like, what is it like, though, going from reading the comics in the back of the comic book shop to now writing them and also seeing
Comics are math.
your name?
That's it
Comics
right
are
there.
math.
Comics are math? Okay.
So I
Oh,
talk about this
boy,
a
do you
lot
have to
when
say that.
talking about like prose versus comics. Like, yeah, you may have a word limit for prose, but like you're not sitting there like the last word on a page when you do a page turn matters unless you're doing some real experimental shit, right? Like on a comics level, positioning matters. It is all algebra. It is cool. I need this plot point and this plot point to happen on this page. I have between 4 and 7 panels, really between 4 and 5 if I am a person with any sense to do this. So
Yeah,
I have to
please
figure
don't
out
capture
what those
artists.
different you have to figure out so many variables. So it is more like math and puzzle work, I think, than any
I
other
love
sort
that.
of storytelling craft, where I sit there and I'm doing fill in the blank work. I'm literally solving. Anytime you're trying to tell a story and figure out what any individual panel does, it feels more like solving for X than than like prose does. And that was something. So like there's a whole. It is the difficulty levels for me between prose and comics are very different. Like the way I write them is so different. And that was a big thing that kind of like hit me. And like that for me. And also weirdly, it's never my name that freaks me out. It's you're gonna let me work with who? Like it's never my name on something that makes me lose my mind. It's they're like, cool, so we were thinking of like this artist. What do you who? with the wear, like me, you know, like with them, like
that always blows my mind.
because my no written form of my name is ever real to me. Like that's not just like pen name stuff. I just mean literally like my eyes can't see it. It's all static. But like the casualness of working with greatness, like on a real level for me, like that's always what throws me.
And
how
also
about you,
like,
Vita? Do you go through that as well, or can you not see your name either? Does you just kind of glaze over it?
I am blessed and cursed with self-loathing, and so I don't like my name on something. I'm like, well, let's not look at that. It's like I have to actively.
I'm seeing a pattern here, Danny. I'm seeing a pattern here with Vita. I'm seeing this.
You see why I have to compliment them?
Yes.
But I was lucky right out the gate. Like the first person I worked with was, Kari Randolph. So I was like, oh, great. Top tier.
Wait, was that on Livewire? Was that on Livewire, or was that on something else?
Kari did the new talent showcase with me. So we worked on Wonder Woman together, and my first published thing was a Wonder Woman story. And so like,
whoa,
yo, if you heard anytime we text each other like, yo, you got 5 minutes, and like 90% of the time it's the scream that someone's letting me do this. Like,
it's
I mean,
it's
the
really
one for me is they let me do that wild nonsense in Bond. We've been away long enough from it, right? They let me hit Bond with a shark, and like
in the face.
I was like,
it was great.
I was gonna ask you about that. I'm like, who let you hit 007 with a shark? How did you get Sharknado into this comic?
It was incredible.
So that one actually came up, I think, of us goofing, like literally of us doing a lettering pass on an earlier issue. And I think I said it out loud, and I was like, there's no way they're gonna let me do it. And V, like we are just that Kermit meme. And so I'm
Darth Kermit. Like, there's no way. I was like,
just do it.
Ask for forgiveness, not for permission. Like, just do it.
We believe your exact words.
That's true. I believe your exact words were, "What if I hit him in the face with a fish, like Harley Quinn in that episode of Batman?" And I was like, "Do it."
Yeah, so like I emailed our editor and was like, LOL, wouldn't it I was jokingly talking to Vita about doing this. What do you think? And his response was to send me a link to a Monty Python skit. So I was like, all right, I'm doing this. Also, awesome. No one can see this because you don't get to see the script. But like that last image of like the fish on the floor in the script, I described it just like Magikarp flopping on the floor. If you're wondering how nerdy I am,
we added a link to Magikarp flopping on the floor. We do that a lot.
Oh my gosh! So okay, now that was yeah. Vita, tell us what those. Your moment was that was like, oh my God, they're letting me do this. Was it Zena?
Yes, I mean without
look at
doubt.
your face.
I was like, Zena.
Listen,
like,
every
hierarchy of my favorite characters is Zena's my number one favorite character of all time, and then 2 and 3 switch back and forth all the time, and that's Renee Montoya and Wonder Woman. Like those are my top. That's my holy trinity. And so the idea of anyone letting me write Zena, I was like, you're a fool. I'm going to do it now. I was like, let me bust out those notebooks from when I was 13. Hold on 1 second. No, I did not.
And then
I did not do that.
And then he got me in on Bond. And that was like my moment because like for me, like, you know, I have many nerd loves.
It was meant to be.
Yeah.
Wow. I feel like also we did things on Bond, and I got to do things on Zena, and we did things on Ironheart that like, I was like, we got away with something here. Like we made out like bandits. Like I remember in Zena, I was like, I'm gonna put Dracula in an issue. Can I do that? Yeah, I'm just gonna do it. She's like, issue with Dracula.
Or the funniest joke we will ever make is in Riri.
Well,
and
that's the one from Ironheart.
That was the one time that I was Dark Kermit. Because we started because we were doing we were doing lettering pass. So this was not in the original script. It was just when we saw the art and we realized there's a weird space here on the page from like just where the lettering was positioned. So like we have space, right? To add something, let's add something tonally. And at some point, Vita because our villain's name is Andre.
Okay, so what you said was like, oh, Xavier should say something about Andre, about Dre, and I was like, oh, I forgot about Dre, and then we just both stopped, and I was like, but what if? Can we do that?
What if they?
I forgot about Dre joke in this comic right now.
Which led to the other great note that we got on that was we were like, we're gonna do it, and we'll come up with something else if they say we can't do it. But then we got a note back from the editor, which was, okay, just Copy Edit and I are having a discussion because Andre's name has an accent and Dre doesn't. Do we want with or without accent for this joke? And I was like, thank you.
And I've never felt so supported in my life. That was at Marvel. That's the thing too, to bring it back to your original question there. For me, I didn't realize how much happens between conceiving of an idea and then it being printed on the shelf. And I am much more kind now when I go back and read things that I'm like, this was wonky when I first read it. But now I understand probably things that happen. But like the amount of problem solving that literally everyone on the team, especially the editor, is trying to do behind the scenes is people have no idea. People, attribute like evil intentions to editors and all this stuff. And I'm like, you have no idea the work these people do.
No, they do a lot of work. And I can always tell when there's a comic that hasn't had one. They're especially in indie comics. But what I'd like to do really quick, actually, if we can, is because a lot of people don't know this, and I went through this. Matthew Cherry, when he was here, he was talking about what it took to make a film and how people think it's just this idea, and then you go shoot it on a phone and you're done. And he did shoot a movie on a phone, but there's so much that goes into
done.
it.
There was so much more.
No, he wasn't. Exactly. So you let's say somebody reaches out to you, and let's talk about James Bond. Somebody reaches out to you and they say, hey, listen, we're thinking of, we would love for you to work on this James Bond comic. Now, Vita, Danny mentioned earlier that you brought them in. So does that mean like the ask was of you and you were like, this is going to be a team sport? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, it was. And that was for two reasons. One, I have a hard time saying no to work. I'm getting much better at it. But I grew up.
Your wife is somewhere going, please, God.
Yes, my wife, bless her, is part of the reason why I've learned how to say no. But I was a little overwhelmed. She's a blessing to me. But also, so I was like, I could fit this into my schedule. James Bond is a dream book for literally anyone that I know, including myself. Like, but I will be overwhelmed. And then I was like, the person who deserves to be writing this book is Danny. Not because I don't love James Bond. I do love James Bond. But because Danny, there's a difference between something that you're like, oh, that's amazing. I'm so grateful for this opportunity. And this is a dream for me. And for me, James Bond.
For context, a week before this, my wife had gifted me the limited edition anniversary James Bond Moleskin that I had not touched yet.
Yeah, and again, I love Bond.
Like that, I love fan.
That was like Skyfall is like me. Like I'm a Bond person. My wife really loves like the Daniel Craig ones. Skyfall like literally is a comfort movie for us. Like if one of us is feeling bad, I just put it on. I lost count of how many times we saw it in the theaters. Like that was like one of like 7. Yeah. Like 7 to 9 times, like legitimately. Because my wife would show up after work and take me to go see it.
So Danny had to do it. I needed Danny to do it
clearly. But then what did it take to like from them to say, okay, we're gonna give this, you're both gonna do this, great, obviously work up some contracts, things like that. And then what's the very first thing you hand it? How do you start? Like, do they tell you, okay, this is where the comic has been and this is where we're going? Or how does that work?
We were lucky in this one, no. For this one, there is a comics continuity, but it was a lot more open. It was one of the things that's really cool about James Bond comics is that they're kind of evergreen, where it's just like, don't tell us where in his life this happens. It should be able to just be picked up in it. Which I think is a really smart way to do it. I think that if you want to continue to tell stories with this person at the same age forever, then that's how you have to do it. Yeah. But so you're like, Batman.
It's true. He never ages. I never thought of that. You're absolutely right. He's been 35 since I was a baby. So,
but like you're just like, this happened at some point, right? And you're just like, I guess he's really busy all the time. But with this, I was like, okay, I got I got approval for Danny, and there was a process of bringing Danny on board. And then one of the things that Danny and I do really well is start from the ground up. And so we got into a room and we were like, if we could do anything, what things would we do? Okay, great. What makes sense to do in the amount of space that we have? What characters do we want to use? And then from there, I knew from working with that editor before kind of what he would want in terms of a document. And then we knew, me and Danny, that we would have to be even more meticulous than the documents I usually hand in, because there was the estate to keep in mind, the Fleming estate, who I have to say, wonderful to work with. Like, incredible.
Oh yeah,
really.
We had stuff that so we work on a logic of we only write down the thing we most want to do, but we come with 5 backup plans, because as Vita taught me, as fate will have it, if you give someone 5 choices, they will give you they will say they like your least favorite. So only give them a thing you want to do. But be ready if they know.
Always have it in your back pocket.
Yeah.
That's my motto.
So we were really fortunate.
Well, Danny especially is good at this, but like meticulous note taking about what we were talking about. And if it was a physical instantiation, which it wasn't because Danny takes very nice notes, it would have been like that conspiracy board from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Like that's what it would have looked like.
I initially actually take really bad notes while talking, but I'm really good at if I'm remotely excited about a story at all, it sticks with me for a very extended amount of time, like small detail everything. So I can produce really great notes. So like when we're talking, like my notes will be like weird random words on a page that don't make sense, but they're just enough so that I don't forget things. And then I produce like a full-fledged outline of what we did. And then like I add in like the transitions between the points. And that was kind of how we worked on this.
And even when we're not as intense, because for Bond, we had to do a page-by-page breakdown of the whole thing before we started, which is not usually the case. Usually you get by with an issue by issue or even maybe a scene by scene. But for Bond, we had to be very on point because we knew that the estate would want to see every single beat. And then after that stuff approved.
And also, like, just to be honest, it was fairly early in my career as well. So like it was, a combination both. Yeah. So it was very much me being the new kid on the block. Like, I think even with the detail that we needed to have for the estate, our editor was like, oh, you did a lot more than like I think you needed. And like some of that definitely did come from being the new kid on the block, and being like, I gotta show.
Yeah. And then so you get notes, and so you just get you get notes from the editor, obviously from the estate. I didn't realize that was a level. And then as you're going back and forth, when is it locked so that the letterer or the colorist first probably, when is it locked so the colorists and everybody get involved? And again, I'm taking this process because I don't think a lot of people realize like all of the people that go into making these things.
So let me break it down.
So we go.
She's got the arms going.
Got my grabbers going. So you do whatever it is that you do when you write your script. I won't go into the details of that because it varies from person to person, and also the way that me and Danny work together is different than the way we work separate. So we get a script, we send it to the editor. We hope that we don't have to rewrite the whole thing. We get it back.
Then we have to rewrite the whole. We have to rewrite the whole thing.
No, that's not right. So basically you get notes back, and then what you're looking for in the notes are what are the structural changes that we have to make so that the artist can get started as quick as possible, because monthly comics are a brutal schedule. So you want to give as much lead time as possible for the artist, because the artist will have to then give it to the colorist and the letter. Blah, blah, blah. So you make all the structural changes and promise, I swear, we'll make all of the dialogue changes in the lettering pass. We promise, right? Which we should do, and we do. We're pretty good at it when we're together. This is, to me, that's all I can do for the artist. I'm like, I'll make it so you don't have to wait on me to figure out what pretty words are coming out of their mouth. Then the artist, the line artist,
that is very. That's also something that I would note. If you are starting out, to not do that, and
yeah, don't do that.
But like, because here's the thing, we were able to. There are certain things that we are able to do.
We wrote mostly full scripts, to be fair. Like full script is
we wrote mostly full scripts. Yeah, and then like at certain points in a scene, we might go, cool, we know they're going to talk about this. Don't worry about it. We'll figure out exactly what they say. Or we'll do a note where we know this is the crappy version of the dialogue. But like, say, I never did that in Queen of Bad Dreams, right? Because I wasn't yet, I didn't have a rapport yet with editors, right? So like, we're able to do certain things because by the time that we decided to like do those sorts of things, our editor knew Vita very well. We had discussed story on such a level.
Right.
He had seen my work already. Yeah.
So like that's a short way.
The two of y'all are hysterical. You keep talking at the same time. Okay, Vita, what were you saying?
We've known each other so long. So let me run through it quickly, right? So then the artist gets a hold of it, and if you only have a single line artist, that means they're doing pencils and inks. You'll get a stage where you see layouts that you talked about with everyone. Usually I am a little more hands off on layout stuff. I try and give whatever, like if there's a big note, which very rarely there is for me, then I'll, we'll do that. But otherwise, A, the editor knows exactly what the format that makes more sense is, and B, the artist is they're the one that's drawing it. They're better than I am. Then you get back pencils and inks. Pencils are your final chance to get stuff changed in the art. They get inked. That goes to the colorist, and often to the letterer at the same time. So while the artist has been drawing it, you can do a lettering pass off of like layouts, which I would suggest if you can, or off of the pencils. You look at all the stuff and you go, okay, this is what, we have to cut back dialogue here or add or blah, blah, blah. And then you get back the colors and you go, oh my God, this is so good. And then you get back the letters and you go, I spoke too much. I have to cut it down. And often a letterer and a colorist will work in conjunction with each other, because letterers will do cool things like, take color from the background and make sound effects that color to make it pop or something like that. And then you get your final pass at everything, which is you have your script. Hopefully you've done a lettering pass already so that you're not torturing your letterer, making them do a ton of changes. And you tweak it based on the final art, because I believe, this is just me, that most comics, the first draft is overwritten. You throw a lot more dialogue and captions and stuff up because you think you'll need it. And then you get the art and you go, the artist has done all of that work for me. I can cut it down. And you want to support the art as much as possible. So for James Bond, that was really easy. All of the artists that we worked with were incredible. I've been really blessed in that all of the artists that I've worked with are incredible. And so really what that last pass was me and Danny cutting things down, but also being like, okay, let's try to match the phraseology to the expression, or let's see if we can, the artist has added panels. That's great. We have a little more room. We can do more balloons or whatever. So anyway, that's
also
the
occasionally British. Also, James Bond, the last pass also is Britishisms. We try to get the the dialogue and tone as correct as possible from the jump, but sometimes, there are deadlines, and sometimes it is more important to make sure you get the art, because that you can go back and slightly tweak things later. Also, a lot of those snarky Bond jokes are added by Vita in the last pass.
Always.
Combat jokes are
the combat. Wait, actually, Danny, you said the combat jokes are you, and then the snarky jokes are Vita.
No, so a lot of the during combat, like I think what ended up happening a lot is that I wrote a lot of the combat, and then Vita made most of the dialogue in it. This is in part because for this piece, because we were in close communication with everybody, that we were able to go, we will wait and see what the combat looks like to do the sound effects to make sure they land right.
With spy stuff and with superhero stuff, to me, I always like to do that because that will change a lot of the tone of the dialogue. And I almost don't want to influence the artist too much in terms of being like, you have to make sure that they can say this here and this there. It's much more like, no, I'll figure out the quipping when you show me what they've done. Because we give a lot of background in terms of tone and emotion and that kind of stuff. And the artist should be able to do with that what they want. The thing that I forgot to mention, which is strung throughout the whole process, is the editor. So the editor is talking to you at every single stage. When you get the notes back on the outline, you're probably calling the editor or having conversations with the editor. When you get the notes back draft, that's going to be your most detailed notes pass to me anyway. That's my experience. And that is a conversation. It's not, I've never had notes back where it's like, change this to this because I say so. Like, that's never been the case. It's always, and is almost always do I get a pretty thorough explanation of what isn't working as opposed to a fix, right? So they won't go, make this. They'll go, this is a little weak for me. Never weak. My editors have all been very kind. They're lying. This is not as coherent as, or it's not getting across the idea that I know you want to do. So maybe try something different. And that doesn't sound like a lot. That's huge. And it happens at every stage that we're involved in as writers. So pitching, outlining, draft, the going to the artist, and then the lettering stuff too. I'll often, get little tweaks on final stuff. Oh, hey, there are too many dialogue balloons, or maybe add a dialogue balloon, or this makes this word choice makes the person angry, but I see what you're getting at. Maybe you want to switch that. Yeah, the editor is the glue that holds the team, and also the shepherd that kind of keeps us eaten by wolves.
In terms of like editing notes, like as an editor, I kind of approach them the same way that I approach writing a script for the artist, which is I try to explain the essence, and then in case they're stuck, give 1 to 2 examples, right?
Danny's an incredible editor.
Oh, thank you. Kind of like, because my thought is, I've had that thing where I'm like, you're absolutely right, that note is right, I have no clue how to fix it. So I like to give examples. One, because that might trigger you going, oh, I can do this other thing. Or if it gets down to the deadline, we still have an option on the page,
Gotcha.
Like especially with dialogue passes and notes, I will go, like, how about this construction? You don't have to do this, but it's a starting point to get to where you want. And I do that. That was one of the first things that I think V and Rosenberg kind of taught me in terms of writing scripts for artists, that like I lose count of how many times in a script I go, or you can ignore this. Like, if you see a different way to panel this, if you see a different way, I'll figure out in lettering pass how to make this dialogue work. This is so you script enough so that the artist doesn't have to do all the work, and enough that if they don't have time, or they don't have a vision for something that changes up what you're doing, that they have something to work off of. And I mean,
the artist is the one, like, it's a visual medium, right?
Yeah.
They are,
so
like.
Yeah. So
I'll follow your lead.
First of all, thank you, because I think that's like the most concise, and I think there's people in the chat would agree, that's the most concise description of how comics get built. And I think there's a lot of indie comic creators and cartoonists out there who are like, yeah, I'll just do this and I'll work for Marvel. And you're like, oh, honey. So I love the fact that you shared that.
We didn't mention all the emails.
Also, right, and also you didn't talk about Big 2 versus indie either, because I'm sure working on the Wilds is much different than the work that you're doing on X-Men and Wolverine. Yay, by the way.
Was that announced? Just no one.
Yes, it's the previews are up. Like, it has been announced.
Oh, cool!
Yes.
I never know. I'm trying so hard not to be on Twitter. It is very different, but I think fundamentally the things that you have to keep in mind, no matter if you're working, even if you're writing something for yourself, I would say, because I know a lot of cartoonists that write the scripts out first, is it's similar to what Danny said. What you're doing is you're giving a shape, right? This is the shape of things. This is a tone, this is an emotion, but you have to remember that the artist is the one that has to take your mad scribblings and make it into something that the world will understand. So it's almost like a translation. And so you have to figure out what you want the artist to feel. And that's the thing that you put down on the page. And that's what I try to do. I don't always succeed. But like when I even, sometimes I work where I do panel breakdowns, and sometimes I'm like, I'm going to be looser here and let you really like unleash and go wild. But I'm like, in case, you don't have a vision, here are things that I'm thinking, but also like this character is feeling this is what's going through this character's mind as they do this. It's not going in the dialogue, but it might give them an idea for an expression or for, a body movement or whatever. And I find that is really useful in indie stuff because it is a lot less I don't want to say licensed work is formulaic, but it's a lot less concerned with we have to do bombastic things now, and much more concerned with kind of an interpersonal interaction in a way. All comics ultimately want to do both. But yeah, with like the Wilds, Emily and I, the blessing of creator owned is that you get to talk to your creator or your co-creator whenever you want, and you are working on it together from the ground up. So this stuff backwards and forwards, but also I was able to use shorthand a lot in ways that I can't in licensed work. So I'd be like, she's feeling this because, remember that thing, or, Emily would come back with like an idea and I'd be like, great, like that makes sense because of all the things we talked about. Whereas with licensed work, often I'm working with people for the first time. And so I'll be like, please, I'm giving you ideas. I'm going to let you know how they're feeling. I'm not going to call, wide shot, this shot, blah, 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 blah. I don't know any of that. I do because I watched movies and I like them, but like, you're going to understand what this scene needs more in terms of like the layout and the format and the acting. I'm just going to tell you what the emotion is. Anyway, if that makes sense, I'm sorry to ramble.
No.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, for me, as a writer, I don't find too much difference, except in the way that I approach characters initially. There are certain things just structurally that you have to do when dealing with a licensed character that you don't necessarily have to do with your own. You approach introducing characters differently. You approach character history differently. But like I find more of a difference, honestly, as an editor than a writer on indie books and license, like not necessarily license, but like the difference between being an editor, like I am currently editing a prose issue of Fireside, right? And so there were submissions to that. We pick the people, and then I'm editing their stories after having like put together a group of people, having put together a team, versus often when I'm doing creator-owned work and editing that, it's because someone's approached me and said, can I hire you to edit? And that's a different relationship there. At that, you are dealing with different kinds of vision, right? I am dealing with the vision of this team that I am putting together and the parameters of this thing that I'm heading, versus my job here as an editor is being brought onto the team in a different way. Your end goal is always to help everything look and be like its best possible form, but the way you approach it is different when you are hired onto a project versus essentially hiring other people onto a project.
And also too,
that makes
sorry.
No, it's okay. I was going to say that all of that makes perfect sense. And it also is interesting to me. Thank you, Danny, for also including your work as an editor in there, because I don't think people understand the importance of the editor and the importance of that one person that is, maybe it's two people, but I think it's usually one person that is basically making sure that everything stays congruous. That's what I meant when I said earlier that I can always tell when it's a comic that doesn't really have an editor, because it's like, how did we get here? I just turned the page and you're like, how?
You need
I
that
really
bird's
want
eye
to get
view.
to, you do. I
Yeah.
want to get to some of the questions in the comments because we're going so long, but I'm so excited about this
Oh,
conversation.
I'm sorry.
My last question before we get to those questions is Quarter Killer and writing. It's so funny because normally I'm asking creators, what is it like writing for the other? Now I'm going to say, what is it writing as an other? Because right now it seems to be so popular to be Black or queer or fill in the blank as everybody rushes around realizing that they don't have enough
exist.
diversity. Yeah, diversity. They always knew we were here, but like realizing that we don't have enough of fill in the blank on our roster. Do you think now that you are having more freedom to write not just queer characters, but characters that are more diverse than the average cishet white male that we normally see? Or do you always feel like that you've had that freedom in indie comics? It's just now trickling into mainstream.
I mean, aside from
For
James
me,
Bond, have I written any white people
I was
yet?
gonna say.
I think
Uh,
and we brought Brandy in, so like
yeah, we brought a Black queer woman into the mix.
yeah, I mean, I
Um,
am in a fortunate position twofold. One where I came in off of people trusting like Vita and Rosenberg's word in terms of who I am as a person and as a professional, but then also having prose, right? So I had my short stories. My first short story that anyone ever bought was like a book
so
was like a story about it's literally about a world in which white people make deals and get possessed by demons, and it is a profile of the last like Black exorcist in the US as like they're about to make exorcism illegal, right?
Okay, so Lovecraft Country, they need to watch
Yeah.
Lovecraft Country. Like,
You know, like so it's so like, you know, that's
oh yeah,
always
the
been
Sundown Town thing.
yeah.
They'll see.
Yeah, like literally it was published in an issue of a magazine whose themes were Sundown Town, right? That I come
whoa.
into things with you know, working with Faya, an all-Black speculative fiction magazine. There's no confusion about what I do in a really weird, real way. And I'm very fortunate to be at a point and get to work with editors who are picking me because that's what I do, not just because of they like need, you know, Vita and I's name on something, but they know what they're gonna get. Like when people ask for like, oh, can I see samples of your work? I'm sending them Queen of Bad Dreams. You know, like there is no question, you know, the sort of work I do and the level of politics in my work. It's really funny. My work was far more political, is far more like was overtly political before I realized how overtly political I was, you know, like so it's I fortunately have been in a kind of situation where it's like y'all know what you're paying for, and everyone so far has been pretty much like, oh, we know, you know, like
And
that's why you're
two,
here.
yeah, it would be a waste to not let someone do what you pay them to do, what you hired them to do. For
Yeah.
me, I think that indie comics and I'm from New York, so there's a bunch of underground comics stuff as well. Has always been a place for people that were other, that were marginalized. This is a space that we have always occupied, and you know, now it's just that there is more access to the work that we do there. And then also I think that like in a very real way, indie comics is like a proving ground, right? Where people, you know, who come from publishing houses that don't necessarily do indie work will go, oh, you've done something already, I see. What do you do when you're allowed to do whatever you want? Oh, interesting, that's cool. I am fortunate enough where I've been asked to write all manner of characters, people that are like me and people that are very not like me. I've been extra lucky to be able to help create characters that were non-binary and of color. One for Livewire, one for
I still gotta cosplay them.
Yeah,
I don't
they're
want to
great.
color my
Their
hair
name is
pink,
Pan,
but I
like
want
a
that
son of a
outfit.
bitch. And you know, and one for Supergirl.
I need that
And
jacket.
so good. But to me, that's really the thing that I feel is giving me the most hope, is that not just that they are interested in my take on the characters that already exist, but also that they're like, well, we want more characters that we don't get to see to exist, and you have a voice that is not necessarily one that is seen all the time. So will you help do that? Because we have always been able to do it. Like, you can't stop me from writing my own
I was
stuff.
gonna say it's
That's
not
my
like
shit.
you're gonna stop doing it. It's just we want you to get paid to do it and paid
Yeah,
properly.
well, that too. Bless you. I appreciate that.
That's
But like
what I'm
the
all
fact
about. That
the
like, get paid. We know you're good. I'm never gonna question that. It's just get paid.
We do. We know you're good, Vita.
Stop.
See, I'm gonna get in on this game. Okay, so I'm gonna go to the questions from the chat because they've been waiting patiently. Some of them. What are your thoughts on this? Is very apropos. What are your thoughts on ever getting Storm and Wolverine together? I asked because of the alternate timeline in X-Men, the animated series. No, I don't know if y'all heard. They're each working on this one. Wait, this one is working on an X-Men book, and this one is working on a Wolverine. Oh, did I do it wrong?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not doing nothing.
Are you working on
over
a Wolverine
there?
book, Danny?
Not working anything? You don't have anything coming out? You don't have anything coming out?
Not over there. No.
Okay, so Vita's working
No,
on X-Men.
I don't.
Vita, you are working on X-Men book.
Yes,
I don't put it past myself to say yes to something in a fugue, but I would really like to know.
I'll let you know.
My answer to that is all characters should kiss at least once. So that's just my answer.
2 consenting adults. They've dated before. They've kissed before.
Yeah, but I feel like Greg Pak wrote them together at one, like for 5 minutes.
Her new mohawk like that one time. Like he like shaved her head.
Well, I mean, this has been one of my issues. I love Greg Pak's writing. I just don't think they should have switched off the artist every issue. I think that was disconcerting for some people. But Wolverine and Storm were together for one issue in there for about 15 minutes.
Now,
this becomes an X, which is the X-Men.
That's right. Is the question, am I going to do it, or is the question, should it happen? Which one is the question?
What are your thoughts on ever getting Storm and Wolverine together?
I mean,
because
I think that
basically in the animated series it happened, I guess, for like 5 minutes.
Yes, in one of them. I think that is delightful. I think that Storm should get hers in every way that she wants. She has suffered enough. She should just be happy. She should have girlfriends. She should have boyfriends. She should have non-binary friends. She should have lots of friends. I also think that because of their history together.
Oh God, I hear Storm with an auntie voice just being like, "No, that's my. Go get the door. That's my friend. Don't worry about it." Like to all the students, like Storm's got her friends over.
Always got her friends over.
That's hilarious.
I think one of the things that makes them interesting is that they kind of share an interesting like level of pain that all mutants are traumatized and sad. That's true.
All mutants have
but
pain.
some of Storm has had so much like messed up experiences and different experiences in her short life, and Wolverine has had them in a longer life. And so it's interesting to me how those parts kind of like interact with each other. And I think that it makes them how they interact. And I think it makes them understand each other on a level that maybe they might not feel other people do. Right? Storm is like a goddess and was treated like a goddess, but also was a thief, but also was, you know, this person that lost her parents very early and all this stuff. And Wolverine's gone through that stuff too. So I'm for it. But I also would like Storm to kiss everyone.
So, okay, another question. What are your favorite things when you're writing together as a team? What are your favorite things to make the other person take care of?
Oh, Danny.
Oh, I'm terrible at transition scenes. I always hand them to Vita. I'm really, really bad at, like, this is just like an issue. I'm like, I can envision the high points really easily. But like,
but then you're like, Vita, get us out of this room. Vita, get us out of this room and get us to the next scene because I can't.
I build the escape room and Vita gets us out of them. Like that's like
okay.
I like, so what'll happen is whoever is leading the issue will get burned out on something, even if normally they'd be able to do it, and the other one will take over. So I remember when we were working on issue, I think it was 5 of Bond, there was like a scene where like he interrogates someone in a bathroom, and I was like, Danny, I don't know, they're talking, I don't know, just do it. I got them there, I was snarky at them, just I don't know, they're just standing in a room, make it interesting. And then they did. I also really like sometimes if we're co-writing like this specific issue, instead of passing it off draft for draft, I want to see what they'll do with certain things, so I'll just write something and I'm like, get out of that, just see how that works.
Yeah,
That's my
we do
favorite
that.
thing. How does your magical mind work? Get yourself out of this now.
Another question is, do you listen to music while you work? And if so, what has been on your playlists recently? I know Vita does.
Yeah, so much. I listen to music 24/7. I will, for something that's longer than an issue, I will make a playlist for it usually. So I have playlists for most of the things that I've written or am writing. The ones that haven't been announced yet are like coded, like code names. But yeah, I need the vibe to be right. In the way that I'm trying to provide vibe for the artist, I need to provide vibe for myself. And right now, I'm working on something where it's a lot of like, kind of like, I don't know, man. There's like some Ani DeFranco on there, and like, but like from Hadestown, and and there's like Mississippi John Hurt and stuff like that, like a lot of stuff like that.
And do you find, I used to go through this when I was editing video. Do you, let's say you have multiple things that you're writing in one day, does the playlist switch to that project so that you can just in your brain know, all right, this is what we're doing now?
Yeah,
I need that.
How about
for
you, Danny?
dialogue.
Do you do that too?
Yeah, for the dialogue in particular, I need it. I mean, like I listen to music all the time. My family's a big music family, so I tend to do vibes, most of which are like Run the Jewels right now, but like
There you go.
vibes all the time. Like I have also, to keep myself from sitting in one place for 5 hours, I have a record player. So what I will do sometimes is, to make myself get up from my seat, is intentionally use my record player instead of digital music, because then I have to get up and flip it. And then when I flip, like I'll make sure to stretch or something like that. Recently, it's also been the original 80s Transformers soundtrack a lot, because I got that on vinyl.
Yes. Oh my God.
I got that.
I swear to God.
It's literally the last 3 things I've listened to on my record player. I'm not playing with you. It's that, some Miles Davis, and then the Mario versus Rabbids soundtrack. That soundtrack is amazing.
All right, hold on. I have a question for y'all.
Okay.
For the two.
Okay.
What's your favorite video game soundtrack to jam to like work or be creative to?
Oh, see, I'm not a big. I think I probably listen to anime soundtracks more, or
well, which one?
Themes.
Right.
Than
So what's your anime soundtrack?
Well, currently my anime soundtrack, and the anime that is just like my resting anime, the one I put on all the time, is actually Blood Blockade Battlefront. Because there was so much jazz and so much fun pop, like that radio station that would always play in the show. Yes. All that music is in the soundtrack. That goes on a lot. Also, this is sort of an anime household, so I feel like Chuck is always blasting either like Pantera or like real Pantera, or it's like something Gurren Lagann, like the Gurren Lagann soundtrack, or
of course
like
that track.
We're always
so hard.
But you know what's really funny for me when I'm working? I actually can't listen to words in English. Like I can't have somebody singing in English because I will not be able to write. I listen to a lot of K-pop. I listen to J-pop.
I can't listen to new
things.
music.
Oh,
for the same reason, I can't listen to new or no, like it doesn't have to be older. I have to know it. So it doesn't matter what language it is in, because if it's new music that I haven't heard before, I get distracted.
Got it.
But like
if your brain already recognizes it, it's like, oh, I can let that go.
Yeah, because I have a racing brain, so like that's also why like I do a lot of repeat comfort stuff, like with the BuzzFeed. Like I will also just use that as my sound because I know it. So it is just enough sound to drown out my random thoughts. So also for anime answers, the Megalobox soundtrack, because half of that soundtrack is the entrance songs. Because like so it is the plot is the plot is a sci-fi world with boxing but with exoskeletons on them so that they hit harder. And your main character within the first couple of episodes, as he's like a nobody, like literally off the grid, no name, like he's listed as Junk Dog, and he like boxes as Joe, Gearless Joe actually, because it's so good. Because he decides the only way he's going to get noticed so that people challenge him for fights in this competition is to fight without an exoskeleton. So he has to win his fights without it. And
wow.
So like it is actually an homage to the old what is it, the Joe the Boxer old sports anime, but with like a real kind of like Cowboy Bebop energy to it without trying to be Cowboy Bebop. But like so half the soundtrack is the entrance music of the different boxers, right?
It's great.
So it's got just like that swagger vibe. And then my video game one is the Reboot Devil May Cry soundtrack. It is, so there's two different soundtracks. It's the Noisia does the instrumentals, and then Combi Christ does the other soundtrack. And it both of them play in the game, and so it's like heavy wild ass industrial, which is really great if you need to drown out random thoughts. That's like video game music, like that's one of my top ones if I'm not just straight up doing like Final Fantasy 15 like instrumentals.
And the one I left
Final
off,
Fantasy
of course,
person.
was Persona 5. Persona 4 and 5.
So
I left those off.
So
yeah,
they're both
and then
real
you know what
good,
Chuck
but Persona 5 and
Chuck found the live performance of all these people. Like from last year, there's a lot. Yes, see Danny's face. That was my face. There's a live concert.
So you're linking that to
I don't know if
when we're done.
I don't know if Chuck is in the chat. If he's in the chat, he's. I'll ask him to drop that in there. But yeah, the live concert. It's okay. I'll send it. I'll drop it in Discord or something. But it is phenomenal because not only is it phenomenal to hear it live, it is phenomenal to hear the singers who are like these Japanese aunties singing the songs. It's awesome.
The Persona 5 themes are so fly. Like the swagger of that game is so good. I love the Persona games in general, but like that one has a different level of swagger where like I was talking about it the other day, where more so than the other Persona games, your protagonist has a personality. Like there are like really... the Persona protagonists are supposed to be everyman, and like he sort of still is, but like Joker, you know his personality. Like there is no question, it is very easy to perceive of what his actions would be as independent of the player, and I love that. Also when you finish a fight and he just does that like swagger
an
walk
advertisement for Persona.
I love.
Yes,
so
I know. It's so funny that Twitch is actually like a thing where you watch people play games, because I've been doing this for years. Like I'm a fighting game person. I'm really not good with RPGs. If I have time to play a game,
it's the reverse for me.
I just want to sit down and I want to fight. I want to fight. Somebody needs to die. I need to get this off my chest. I'm a Scorpio. This is what's happening. But every RPGs, I don't want to sit there and have a conversation. Do you want to talk? Do you like? So
I'm a Cancer.
But
I'm a Cancer, so I want to live in it for 60 hours. I'm being a Cancer. I need to live in the game for 60 hours, and cry over my feelings. Final Fantasy, it's messing everything up for everyone.
if I lose and lose really badly, I'll be like upset. It like basically will like I destroy. Like I'm rethinking my life choices, everything. It's too much. So let me just do something that's pretty simple. Like I'm telling you, I tried playing something that was RPG like, which was it was years ago. It was Mirror's Edge, and I couldn't get off that fucking roof.
wow.
And I stopped. It made me so
It was
angry
hard.
that I stopped playing video games for years. And then I came back to like I think it was Assassin's Creed, and I'm like, why? Why am I doing this to myself? And then I went. So I'm
those
I'm a
the games for me
Tekken
where
Mortal Kombat person.
yeah.
Wait,
Where
wait, wait,
Mirror's
wait,
Edge
wait, wait,
is the game I'm angry about
wait.
that I couldn't play well. And Assassin's
Hold on,
Creed
hold
is
on,
the
hold on.
series that no matter how many times I fail, I keep buying it. It doesn't matter.
Dan, hold
I
on.
just love them. Yeah.
Hold on.
Oh,
I need to know, Karama.
who's your main?
Yes.
Mortal Kombat. Who's your main, and which Mortal Kombat's your favorite?
Okay, let me be more specific. I love Tekken. I like Mortal Kombat.
Okay,
But-
who's your main
Tekken
in
then.
Tekken?
Switch it up for Tekken. Yeah, who's your main in Tekken, and which Tekken do you love the most?
You know what's really funny? I really got into the last one. I was
Ooh,
an
okay.
older player. I loved Eddie Gordo, but Eddie Gordo was
Yes.
gone. Now they have people that play kind of like Eddie Gordo, but I used to be able to kick everybody's ass as Eddie Gordo, and that's what used to piss people off because there was like this little cheat, and I would always use it, and then perfect, you're dead. I can go back to doing what I was doing because that's all I came here to do, or play on my own. I also am a Hwarang fan, but because it's just a Taekwondo thing, I just like that leg. That's actually also one of the reasons why I like that. God of High School, like the main character fights like Hwarang with boxing. So that's actually one of the reasons why I like it. So Mortal Kombat, I kind of put it down for a minute.
By the way, there was a right answer, and it was King, and you all
I didn't answer the question.
No, but here's the thing.
I
loved King was a backup. King was a backup, but it's really funny because
Eddie
I
is
had
the
people
right
whenever
choice.
I wanted to play as King, people were like, oh, okay, I'll play as King too. And I hated that. I always wanted the other person to play as something else. And everybody thought, especially for a girl coming in going, I'm gonna play as Eddie Gordo. They go like, okay, go ahead. And then it was really easy for me to kick their ass because they just underestimated everything. King, everybody always wants to play as King against me. But you're right. King was amazing. That's funny. Mortal Kombat. Oh, that's so tough. It is tough
hard.
because wait, what? What was that?
I said it's hard. It's a hard one.
Oh, yeah, no, it is hard because until like this latest version 11 with these like that you can play as like Joker and Spawn, which I love. I think if I was going to go with the stock characters, I would say Scorpion.
Nice. As a Scorpio,
yes.
that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
Scorpion is
thank
the
you.
best.
I know it's a little on the nose, but
No. Live your
When I was
truth.
real,
That's what I would say.
I was real edgy for years, so I insisted it was Reptile. Didn't matter that I couldn't play Reptile, but like as an edgy person, the answer was Reptile. But Scorpion is and obviously I like anytime Johnny Cage gets dialogue because I like assholes.
That's your favorite.
I'm actually also
my favorite.
I was gonna say, Vita,
sorry.
what's your favorite? No. What's your favorite? I'm curious. Game and character.
Game of the Mortal Kombats. I'm gonna say MK Ultimate 3 and Jade, because that was the first like she's brown, like she's my color, and she's in it, and she's kicking ass. Like I was like, this is amazing. And then her like animality was a tiny black cat that like fucked you up. And I was like, I like this. This
That's a
girl's
little
good.
bit like Bleach. Yes.
Yes. Listen,
you're reaching in Bleach.
If no one suspects the tiny cat.
Nope.
Just
never
saying.
do.
See, I have a cat, so I always suspect a tiny cat.
Well, clearly, we all have cats, so we know.
We do. We're all cat people, right? We could actually probably fight with our cats, but that's a whole different episode. So I want to thank you
Wow.
both for hanging out with me. This has been so much fun. I could talk to you for like 2 more hours because you're great. Thank you everybody in the chat for hanging out with us. And thank you for basically hanging out with me for like 8 weeks or so. We do have one more bonus episode coming your way, but this has really been like a really fun ride, and I'm really excited that I had the two of you as one of my final sets of guests, because it's just like hanging out with friends. And as usual, you can always find me on social media as the Blerd Girl, Theblerdgurl. I will let everybody know on the interwebs where we will be. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.